Okay, here's the new one that came out the end of last year that they've been doing for a few years now, and they've finally come out with some info on a grave of medieval infant prince found in the Arctic, one of 9 newly discovered burials of children. A young boy was laid to rest all alone with 2 iron knives, his feet trampling or resting on reindeer bones, wearing an elaborate headdress was decorated with iron rings. And here they are excavating out one of these burial sites. The burials were on the highest points of spurs, hillocks, or Arctic rivers. And these unique burials, not part of ancient necropolises nor close to each other, were each at the pinnacle of raised spurs besides the rivers on the remote Tazovsky Peninsula. So far, 9 burials have been found, but only 2 opened, and more may be identified. The latest to be unearthed during an archaeological expedition this summer revealed the remains of a child aged between 3 and 7, dating to the late 15th or early 16th centuries, sent to the next life with a meal of newly roasted venison in his grave. And this is them working down through the grave at this point. I believe this is part of the headdress that was there too, and you can see that there's a slab of rock put down, and then he's put down upon it. If y'all can make that out in the shot, right? The latest to be unearthed during an archaeological expedition this summer revealed the remains of a child aged between 3 and 7. And people wonder how you can get such a broad range like that. Well, you have to look at their papers and stuff and what they do. It's basically they try to age people on when their teeth emerge of children. And of course, if you've ever had children, you can see that happen radically different between them. And also perhaps size. And when we get older, it's like the plates in your knees and things that quit growing and all that type of stuff. But before then, they're going off teeth. So you can actually have a very tall kid that doesn't have his teeth in quite yet, or a very small kid that has all of his teeth in already, and they're going to date him somewhere around in there. So at this point, they don't have it knocked down. I guarantee they'll probably come up with a year of 5 or 6 years old eventually off of it. But they're telling you he could be as young as 3, maybe 4, and he could be as old as 7 or so. 1 year ago, a boy aged 13 or 14 was found with cross-shaped inlays of white bronze on his funeral gown. It was disclosed. Archaeologists suspect that the others will be children too, but admit that they could be wrong. One theory still to be fully tested is that the youngsters were buried alone, away from their clans, because they died before being fully initiated into their polar societies. So in other words, it's possible that they hadn't had the rights of being a woman or rights of being a man yet, that they may have been done in this manner, but they haven't found enough of them to justify that. There are only certain ones. And then they found this prince, which kind of lets you know that's probably not possible either. It's just strange. What they're finding, though, is the kids are buried up on these hills. There are known burial sites for this time of the indigenous Shakrita, or the Sirita people, small with fair hair and light eyes, called Num Kibya Sakiri and Num Kibya Sakiri V, so 1 and 5. The local Nanets call the location Road of Those Who Went to Heaven. And here's one of the sites that they had found here, and it's amazing, but he's right on the site here now, and you could have walked over this thing 1,000 times without realizing it. But there's a small tell right here, and so they dug down to see what they could find. It's amazing, but there's another one right over there that probably has another find in it too. They found like 9, so kind of strange, but then there's that spot, and they dug down into it here, and you can see where they have the pit, and they've excavated it out. So far, 9 burials have been found, but only 2 open, more likely to be identified. These burial grounds do not feature graves of such opulence. There's no rich kid burials. That's why we're so surprised by our finds this summer, said Dr. Alexander Tachev, head of the Museum of Archaeology and Ethnography of Tyumen State University. The infant prince found this year had an elite headgear embellished with bronze decorations and iron rings. As our drawing shows, we specifically searched for the such burials this year and found 8, he said, but we unearthed one of them in the mouth of the Vascalora River, and here is the child. And so they're showing you some of their things. I'm not sure what that's even pointing at there. It looks like it's definitely declinating one exact thing that's up here. Maybe it's that little stone that's there. I'm not sure, but this is part of his hat, and it's said to have been a leather and woolwork hat where it had an inner lining and an outer with a whole decorative set on it and everything, and there looks like some type of garnet stone or something right there that might have something to do with it also. Other pieces up in here, and you see this buckleature type looking thing. Anyhow, another picture closer of the headdress and what's left of it as it disintegrated is this. I don't know why they're pointing over here. I don't really see anything over here. Maybe it's that thing. Not really aimed at it very good, not like I am, but why wouldn't they aim it here? It's not a measuring device like this, so maybe they're trying to point at one of the knives. When we noticed pieces of fur and woolen cloth along with the decorations and understood it was an impressive headwear, they're really shocked. So here's a summarization again, because they want to stretch the article out. This was a child, presumably about 3 or 4 years old, but could be up to 7. The child was lying on an underlay of birch bark, and there were 2 iron knives in the area of the belt, an arrowhead and reindeer bones under the feet. The headwear had bronze decorations sewn into it, and he explained the burial was unusually rich for such a little child. In fact, we were rather taken aback. When we dug down, we thought the grave was almost empty, but then we saw 2 knives and were very surprised. And it shows you here a plank of wood that's over the top of where the body was too that they removed. There's a sizing device, and I guess it's just pointing at the sizing device. I'm not sure what goes on with some of these people's pictures. Here it is again, pointing over here at the ground up here. But interestingly, I don't see anything up there, but I do see these cool knives right over here that it's not pointing at. So, yeah, a big knife and a smaller knife, which used to have handles to them. They make no mention of them, so probably made out of wood and long gone. When we noticed the pieces of fur and woolen cloth along with the decorations and understood it was impressive headwear, they were really shocked. They're basically right here just going to keep saying the same things over and over again, so I'm going to skip a couple. But the headdress was 2-layered. On the outside, fur, but lined with woolen fabric on the inside. Sewn with elaborate headgear and decorations, decorative ornaments as well as rings. The burials were on the highest points of the spurs or hillocks or on Arctic rivers. They're shallow, up to 15 centimeters in depth of the shallowest ones, so they're not that deep. The body lay in a birch bark underlay. The pieces sewn together. A small moat was dug around the burial place. There's an interesting fact. I bet these guys, when they were sitting there, were like, man, it's kind of cold this morning. I wish we had the double-lined hat. Maybe I ought to get me one. So here you can see them working out onto this slab, finding these pieces. Evidence was found of fires on mounds at the graves, with venison being cooked to the bone or on the bone, perhaps as sustenance on the way to the next life. A construction of wood or branches was set alight. We found traces of fire, embers, and ash, he said. Some burials are 100 meters apart, others separated by a distance of kilometers. Dr. Chachev said the dead may have been significant members of their society, but died before some initiation rite. This would explain why they were buried separately. It's also possible that they were sacrificed in some way, but they don't see evidence of that yet. But that's why they're fixing to take all of this into the shop and really get a good look at it in a controlled environment. He said if we find adults in similar burials, I'll need to reconsider this theory. And so looking here, here's Vladivostok, Moscow, Selkart, and here's the peninsula that they were up on, way up in here. It shows you these little blonde pale people from back then, right? Burials from indigenous Sakura people. They had arrived from the south some 2,800 years ago. Nenets people describe them as smaller, with blonde hair and light eyes. They hunted and fished, but also traded with Russians. By the mid-17th century, they'd become assimilated with the Nenets people, and the new finds were made by Dr. Tachev, archaeologist Andrei Slushayev from Yekaterinburg, and a student of Katya Gurdzoyan. Let me botch that on the way out the door. They plan to reconstruct the dead child's elaborate headdress in the future. And so I think that's a pretty neat finding that's right there too. And, there's a lot of people that are totally against people digging up any of the dead to find out what went on in archaeology. And then there's the other people that want to find out what happened in the world. Hey, if you want to dig me up a few thousand years from now and wonder what happened to me, I'm more than down with it. I don't think anything bad about that. Well, we all believe the soul's already gone anyhow. That has nothing to do with anything anymore. That's why some people give their bodies to science. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. And once the genetics and things come out of this, if they can get genetics out of it, which I'm thinking they can in this area for sure, we'll get to know a little bit more about these people before they were mixed into the other population. Peace.